Hi, my name is Dave Thomas, and today I want to introduce you to Gitpod. Gitpod is an automated development environment. It's based on Theia, the open source VSCode powered IDE. When you start Gitpod, it instantly starts a machine in the cloud based on a Docker image. You get instant access to a terminal with all your tools set up and configured and ready to use. With the pre-builds feature, Gitpod builds your code and pull requests in the background. This saves you loads of time waiting for dependencies, configuration, compilation and the test running, all of which are done before you even start the environment. Gitpod also has Git Integration, so you can manage your pull requests and code reviews all without leaving the IDE. With Gitpod being VS Code based, it also means you can use VS Code extensions, and these can also be saved to your workspace for you to use in the future. Gitpod also has a couple of really useful collaboration features, sharing and snapshots. The first one, sharing, means you can share the current live workspace with colleagues and remote workers so they can see exactly the same processes and code that you're looking at. So this is really handy. Another really useful collaboration feature is snapshots. Snapshots allow you to clone the complete environment and state and share that as a completely independent machine and workspace. These can be used for various different purposes, such as reproducing a really complicated issue, or for creating things like example documentation, or for onboarding documents for new members of the team. You can actually create a snapshot of implementing the feature at different phases and share them with your team for easy onboarding. So now that you've seen a brief whistle-stop tour of all the different features of Gitpod, let's have a look at this in context with a live repo. To do this, we can use FreeCodeCamp. It uses a few different technologies like Node, JavaScript and React components too. To start Gitpod, we can click the Gitpod icon if you're using the Chrome extension, or you can add a prefix to the URL to start Gitpod. The prefix is simply https://gitpod.io/#. Whichever of these you decide to use. Gitpod creates a Docker image, checks out your code and runs any scripts that you might have set up in your configuration. One of the great features that Gitpod has is pre-builds. While the client script finishes off, let's have a look at some of the configuration for Gitpod. Gitpod houses all of its configuration in a .gitpod YML file. So let's open up the Gitpod configuration file. The first thing you'll see at the top is the image file. This is where you specify the Docker image or a Docker file to use to specify a custom Docker configuration. The next section is ports. This is where you can specify what ports are allowed to be opened and the action that happens on each one opening. The next section we have here is tasks. You can see there's a hyphen next to each individual task, which means you can start multiple tasks in parallel. Here we've got DB, which is the database setup. For this particular one, you can see that there's a before task, which means it gets executed before the rest. This makes sure that pre-build is not blocked. The next one is the server configuration. You can see here we've got a before script and an init script. The init script is actually what gets run by the pre-build. You can see that we've got various npm tasks and a MongoDB configuration script. These all get done as part of the pre-build, so this is time that you're not sat waiting for these to complete. Now we come to the client script. You can see here this has also got an init section, which is running various npm tasks. The last section is pre-builds. This is a configuration that you can use to control whether pre-builds are built on the master branch or one of the separate branches or on pull requests, etc. So now if we move back to the main workspace, we can see that the pre-build's finished and we can scroll through the preview window to see our code running. If we want to see how much time pre-build saved us, then we can look in the terminal window to find this out. But to do this with the client, we have to rewind a little bit because it's scrolled past the terminal buffer. If we look in the client terminal, we can see here that we've saved about 2 minutes of time. If we move across to the server terminal, you can see that we've saved another minute in the server as well. And finally, we can look in the DB terminal. There's actually no pre-build script run here, but you can actually see the result of the DB script. And finally, let's have a brief look through the IDE. On the left hand side, you've got the Code Explorer, search window, source control, and any VS Code extensions that you've got installed. You can actually drop any v6 extension from VS Code into this section and you can use them in Gitpod. You've got any menus that you'd normally expect: File, Edit, Selection, View, Go, Debug, Terminal and Help. We've got the bottom panel here where we've got our terminals, which we can toggle on and off. And then on the right side we've got our outline. For example, if we've got a file open, you can see the outline of the current parts of the file. We've also got pull request integration. And there's also the preview window where you can see the currently running code. We've also got the account menu here where you can make a snapshot or share the current workspace or open a dashboard or open access control or even stop the workspace. We've also got the status bar at the bottom where it'll show you the current repo, current branch, synchronized changes, and current warnings and errors. You've also got details about the current open ports, and you can also open previews or browser based on those ports and control them. Here we've got a shortcut to Spectrum Chat for any help, and details on the current language. You can also press F1 to access the normal command palette to find your favourite commands. I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to Gitpod and looking through some of its features. Why not hit subscribe and the notification bell so you can find out when we release any further videos on Gitpod. And hopefully I will see you in the next video.